Hi everybody, this is Agnes from No Sediment, and today we're going to blind taste all quality levels of Burgundy from regional to Grand Cru, the white wine edition, to see if they really deliver what's promised. Grand Cru or Premier Cru, does it really make sense to follow these terms on wine labels? One of you asked me this question in the Q&A video I did recently. While the use and meaning of these terms on labels can vary across different winemaking countries and regions, one region where they hold utmost importance is Burgundy. So I decided to blind taste wines, this time whites, from all 4 quality tiers to see whether they really reflect what's expected of them. But first, let's quickly discuss all 4 quality levels to provide background for the tasting. In theory, at the bottom lies regional appellations represented by such names as Bourgogne, Macon, Crémant de Bourgogne, and others. If we are focusing specifically on Bourgogne AOC, it allows to blend grapes from across the defined area. And often these grapes are sourced from lesser sites with deeper soils on the flatter areas, and higher yields per hectare will be allowed compared to other appellations. However, in some cases these can also be wines downgraded from a better site, for example fruit from younger wines that the producer believes haven't yet reached the quality standard of a village or Premier Cru site. The next comes village appellation, and here we have more options. Think of Chablis, Puligny-Montrachet, Meursault, they all classify as village appellations. And each should have a somewhat distinctive character that sets them apart from other villages. However, it's not always the case. As I mentioned earlier, winemaker can decide to label their fruit from Premier or Grand Cru appellations as village level as well, if they choose to do so. And some will do it if they believe that the quality of their fruit does not represent the said Premier or Grand Cru. And now we are in the Premier Cru category, and some will argue that this is the most fun category to explore. On the label we might see a simple Premier Cru designation or a more site-specific one. Certain sites are considered better than others, and naturally they will dictate higher prices. Therefore, producer will want to highlight this distinction on the label. However, if it is a blend of several Premier Cru sites, or a combination of 2 Grand Cru sites, it might instead be labeled as a Premier Cru. Why I say this is the most fun category to explore? Because within it you might find absolutely beautiful wines that outperform some of the wines labeled as Grand Cru, and more often than not with a more affordable price tag. Not that there are many affordable wines left in the Burgundy. Lastly, at the top, the golden goose, the Burgundy we all dream about, read about and fight about, the Grand Cru category. Each Grand Cru has its own appellation, and for many sommeliers and wine professionals, it is an honor to have them all memorized. These appellations have strict rules regarding the permitted grape varieties and even certain viticulture practices. They are expected to deliver a unique experience in the glass, having layers upon layers of complexity, and naturally be amongst the longest-lived wines in your wine cellar. Now that we have discussed some of the theory, let's actually dive into these 4 categories, taste them side by side in blind, and evaluate where the true value of white Burgundy lies. As always, these wines were poured by my cameraman, and I don't know which wine is which. Shall we begin? Wine number 1. This smells creamy, buttery. There must be some batonnage and lees aging, which usually is a bit higher level than the regional. There's also a really ripe fruit profile like yellow apple and cantaloupe melon, pear. Let's taste it. One thing I didn't tell you before, majority of all these wines are 2020 vintage, which is considered to be hot vintage. However, many critics say that the freshness and acidity is still there. Well, tasting wine number 1, it seems to me that this is coming from a warmer year. The acidity is elevated, but it is not racy or searing. It definitely is a wine of medium plus type of body. I feel some riper citrus fruits as well, like ripe lime or ripe lemon, preserved lemon. And there also is some floral character to it, like white blossom. It is too early for me. I mean, this is the first wine. It is too early for me to assess the quality, but I would want to say that this is definitely not a regional Burgundy. It is village or maybe Premier Cru. I don't feel a lot of oak here. If there is oak, it is quite neutral. Usually Premier and Grand Cru wines will be aged in oak, at least a little bit. So from the top of my head, I would want to say not regional, maybe village, maybe Premier Cru. Let's move to wine number 2. This is very interesting. There's a high intensity here. On the nose, it seems quite a lot. It offers some, some crushed oyster shells. It offers some citric elements, some white blossom as well. It is much fresher and livelier and younger, seems on the palate. Definitely. The acidity is higher. But I mean, on the nose, this is quite difficult for me, I will be honest, because I would want to say that on the palate, it is not as long, and maybe therefore I would like to put it in the regional quality or maybe village again. But like nose-wise, it is quite open and inviting and really pleasant. So I guess it would be interesting to taste other wines before I make my conclusion. However, wine 2 is showing higher acidity than, for example, wine 1, which might mean that this is not a perfect exposure site. Like, in those hotter vintages, sometimes those perfect sites, south-facing sites, can have too much alcohol, too low acidity. And here, maybe, not the best exposure can work for the advantage of this wine. So I will say regional or village. But yes, let's taste wine number 3. So here we have not only riper fruit style like yellow apple, even red apple some places, or white apple. We also have some melon and pear, and they're really sweet and they're really ripe. But then we also have some hazelnuts, some toasted hazelnuts, like those sweet Piemontese hazelnuts without the skin. So there's none of the bitterness, but a lot of that sweetness and toastiness. There's also some buttery hints. And this wine, I would want to say that this wine has seen oak. Let's taste it. So this wine definitely is from one of the premium sites, I hope so, because it has that broadness, that length, that depth, but it also has that nerviness in the acidity. I mean, that just kind of cuts through and adds this energy or electricity to it, which I think is quite beautiful. The aftertaste is really long and it is like preserved, ripe lemon type. And there are some floral notes. I would want to say that this is Premier or Grand Cru wine. It really depends. I have to taste the last wine, but this definitely delivers in terms of quality. It is really beautiful wine. It is long. I said that the acidity is elevated for the wine 2. However, wine 3 had that nerviness and it was more whole. It was like a whole wine rather than, fruit wrapped around the acidity. So let's taste wine number 4. So this wine also shows a lot of ripeness on the nose, but it is more like crushed apple. It's not fresh and crunchy. It is more like crushed or slightly bruised apple style, or skinned melon and melon peel that has stayed on the table for a while, maybe like 2 hours. So there is some oxidation to it. It also has some minerality to it, like seawater, like fresh sea breeze. It also has a layer of nuttiness, toasted nuts, toasted almonds maybe. Let's taste. I think this wine is a really nice wine, very good wine. It is difficult for me to crack it though. It is interesting now. It is slightly opening up, delivering some floral characteristics, some marigolds, some spring blossom. Yes, but there's also some stoniness to it, like crushed white stones, crushed oyster shells as well to it. I mean, you feel greatness and you feel intensity and you feel the length of it on your palate. So I don't think that this is the top quality, but I would want to place it in the Premier Cru. So let's reveal wine number 1. So I give this wine 8.6 points. I think it was really beautiful, and reveal whether or not I am correct. Okay, so it is indeed Francois Carillon 2020 vintage, Puligny-Montrachet, village level. I think it is a really beautiful wine, and I know they recently increased their prices, but up until recently, it was also beautiful value wine. Okay, wine number 2, I do believe it is a absolutely beautiful, highest quality Bourgogne Blanc that you can imagine. I mean, it gave me a bit of struggle because the nose was so nice. It was quite complex, to be honest, and yeah. And I think only winemaking here revealed that it is not coming from a premium site, or it is coming. I mean, there is a certain winemaking techniques you expect for Premier and Grand Cru wines, and you just feel that this is not the case here. It is much fresher and livelier wine, and I definitely give this wine an 8.8. And it is by Matrot, Thierry and Pascal Matrot, Bourgogne Blanc. Absolutely beautiful, beautiful wine. By the way, if you are slightly confused by my wine scoring system, make sure to read the description. I explain or try to explain it there. So wine number 3, I thought that this was the best wine of the 4. I felt it was complex, it was rich, it had a depth, it had nerviness, and it just stayed on the palate forever. It was really beautiful wine. In my world, I would expect that kind of quality from Grand Cru. So let's reveal. I give this wine 9.6 points. So let's reveal. All right, so this is indeed Corton-Charlemagne Grand Cru. This, by the way, was the only wine that had a different vintage on the label. I just couldn't source 2020. And this is from Domaine de Montille. Very interesting producer. He has projects in California and in Japan as well. Lastly comes wine number 4, which naturally is the Premier Cru category. To be honest, I was the most excited about this specific wine. It comes from a very beautiful producer and top site. I will give this wine 8.5 points. And it is Albert Grivault Meursault Perrieres. Perrieres is considered to be one of the top sites in the Meursault area in the Premier Cru category. So it is quite fun that we could actually spot all the categories of the Burgundy quality levels. However, we do see that sometimes the quality can fluctuate a little bit, and maybe we can have some beautiful value wines in the regional and village level category, while we also do see that Premier and Grand Cru category does deliver. And for those who might seem slightly confused about the points that I gave, I always try to take into consideration the price tag. It is very important. After all, I do believe that it is much harder to make and deliver beautiful quality at very affordable price tag than it is at the premium price tag. And wines 3 and 4 actually had quite similar price tag. So I think wine number 3 was between 200 and 300 per bottle, while wine number 4 is slightly above 200 per bottle. So they are very similar. And in this case, maybe I feel I slightly scored down the wine number 4. However, wine number 2 was just so beautiful and crunchy and lovely wine, and we know that it just costs like 30 euros or 20 between 30 euros. And I mean, it just delivers for that price. And of course, 20-30 euros is quite high still, but we are in Burgundy. It is very difficult to find anything below retail price. So if you love wines from Burgundy, but you feel that you might not be able to afford them anymore, just as I do, make sure to watch my other video on finding value in Burgundy.